So I would now like to welcome everyone formally. A very good afternoon. I'm Sadiksha Shrestha. It has been a delight hosting this event so far, and we are talking about interior design's need for storytelling. Now, I believe that all of us really love stories, either listening to them or telling stories, and storytelling is a strategy of communicating ideas and experiences, and its application in the interior design is gaining immense popularity, because when you walk into a space, you sort of create your own personal narrative, also based on the visuals. Now, the intentional use of a curated combination of elements is meant to convey the desired story, and the designers here bring the desired emotion, desired traffic flow, or concentrate attention on carefully chosen objects. Now, I'm very excited to listen to what our panelists have to say, because every property definitely has their own unique story, or should have their own unique story. I'd like to call upon the moderator of this session, the principal architect of Designers Group, Mr. Josima Chitawala, on stage. Can we please welcome him with a big round of applause? Over the past 32 years, Mr. Josima has been a major driving force for several independent and collaborative projects across the globe, which has led to an extensive and diversified work experience. He has worked on a number of projects ranging from mixed-use developments, commercial and residential properties, hospitalities, resort development, and many more. He also believes that contextual and sensitive designs add in measurable value to any project. We're very glad to have Mr. Josima as our moderator of this session. Thank you very much for joining us. And now I'd like to call upon our first panelist, Mr. Bobby Mukherjee, the principal architect and founder of Bobby Mukherjee and Associates, to join the session as a panelist. He's the man who recreated the luxurious living experience of America's Beverly Hills with the very famous Ambi Valley project in India. And with over 15 years of experience in architecture and design, Mr. Bobby strongly believes in bringing an international standard to his architect and design right here in India. So we'd like to welcome Mr. Bobby. Thank you very much for joining us as our panelist. Can we have a big round of applause for him? I would now like to call upon our second panelist, Ms. Britta Noble Gupta, on stage, the founding partner of Studio Symbiosis Architects, to kindly join us in this session as well. Born in Germany, she commenced her architectural studies in Germany and in France, and she has been awarded in her early career with the Newcomer Award in 2002, and in 2014, the prestigious 40 Under 40 Europe. She's also been awarded numerous other awards throughout her career, and we are very glad to have her with us in this panel. Next, I'd like to invite our third panelist, Mr. Pramod Soni, Director of Funkar Interiors, to join us as a panelist in this session. Mr. Soni is an innovative and experienced interior contractor with the ability to give Akar to the designer's dream concepts. Now, since its inception in 1990, the company has had the privilege to work with renowned interior designers from both domestic and international markets, and we're very glad to welcome Mr. Soni as a panelist in this session. I'd also like to call upon our fourth panelist, Ms. Prushni Das, Corporate Director at Technical Services of the Indian Hotels Company Limited, to join us in this session. A seasoned hospitality professional with 16 years of experience in design management, interior design, and opening hotels under various HICL brands. She's also worked with a number of brands ranging from luxury resorts, palaces, budget hotels, and homestays, and we're very glad to have a diverse experience here in the panel with us today. Thank you very much, Ms. Das, for joining us. I'd also like to call upon Ms. Vandana Saxena on stage, the principal designer of Studio 4 Designs, to join us in this session. She heads a dynamic architect and hotel interior design practice based out of Gurgaon, India, which was established in 2012. She has a keen eye for detail, a logical mind, and a strong design aesthetic. She believes in weaving together the local context, a larger functional need, and a modern aesthetic to help create a unique and timeless narrative for a project. Very glad to have Ms. Saxena with us. Can we have a big round of applause for her as well? And now, with the stage all set, and very happy to see three women on the stage as well, balancing the equation, I would now like to hand over to our moderator to kindly take forward this session.
I think so. Since yesterday, we have been trying to determine what trend and how hospitality interiors are going to take shape in future. We have been discussing about crystal balls, and we have been talking about how property should look, how identity should be created. I think so Mr. Kachur gave us a very pertinent guideline saying that this is the focus which we all need to follow. There were several other panel discussions which happened yesterday, and everywhere there was a content where how do we create an identity for each and every property. Now, I think so something which every designer, every owner, and every, I would not say brand, but every owner has an aspiration that he wants his property to make its own statement. And I think so, I would lend this question first to Bobby and to the designer, and then to Prusni. I'm fortunate enough to have Prusni here, who is an architect, designer, and the brand design manager. So we'll take your review also at the end, please. Bobby?
Some of our best projects that turned out to be, very successful had one thing in common with them. They were experiential. We did not follow the box of the regular guidelines of the lookbook that comes with the brands. Sometimes we even went against what was written. It took a while to explain and get the go-ahead from the brand owners to come up with something like that. Some of the best successful hotels worldwide, especially in the Western world, starting with the Western world, were highly, the ones that did really well were not necessarily those common popular brands. They were standalone properties made by very passionate hoteliers. An example, Ian Schrager, when he was doing all those cool hotels in New York and Los Angeles, from Hudson to Royalton to Mondrian. Some of these brands have been taken over now bought by the big boys. They became so cool because they all had a story to tell, depending on the location. They were fun experiences in every step of the way you eat, the way you bathe, the way you watch your television. So those days of that kind of passionate storytelling in a project has been lost to quite an extent, in the process of standardization of brands. I understand where the brands come from, because they want to ensure that when they're opening a hotel in a strange location, and whether they'll get enough intellectual designers as well as the owners to come up with the right product which is acceptable internationally to the travelers. So they'll end up coming up with these design guidelines. But if you can pull it, you start with a story, that can be translated through to the last, from your entrance right to your last bathroom. Makes your project unique. It's not the same, like now all the brands, more of them are copying each other. If someone does something interesting, a few years later, you'll see all of them doing the same. Each one is eating into each other's ideas.
So, Bobby, I'll come to you. You have raised some very interesting points in your. Britta, what about you? What is your take about story in interior designing?
Thank you. I think interior design, it's all about experience. And experience you can convey, of course, with a story, and you should tell the story. But I think we should not only speak about interior, we should also, the experience of a visitor starts in the city, then it unfolds into the architecture and goes into interior. So the story should start in the architecture already. The clues from the city can translate into architecture, and then the story should unfold and carry through into the interior, ideally. Not only start at the interior. From the drop-off, from the city experience, from the drop-off, you go inside, and the story, like Bobby also just said, till the last bathroom should continue.
Vandana, what about you?
Am I audible? Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Storytelling has been a very integral part of human civilization. We've all heard stories as children. We like telling stories, and we're literally living as part of a story every day. So, when we design spaces, as interior designers, of course, storytelling is very important. But how you tell the story is what really matters. So everyone's trying to tell a story, but how did you tell that story? Where did you draw the line? Did you tell too much? Did you reveal too much? Did you reveal too little? So, achieving that threshold is where intricate storytelling comes in. When you're trying to curate a story, so we're all authors, at the end of the day, as designers, we're trying to define the brand DNA. We're literally authors who are writing our own little novels every time we pick up a project. The story that we are trying to curate through the spaces that we are designing have to be designed so that they have a purpose. They can't be just meaningless stories. The user has to be an integral part, or he has to be the main character of our story. And what's challenging when it comes to a hotel is that your user is not defined. You sort of have a broad spectrum, or sort of a broad idea of how the user will be. Will he be a millennial? Will be of a certain age group that is much older? So your story has to be such that every user can sort of tap into it and play into it and be an effective character. So I think that's where the challenge is. And we've done a lot of very interesting projects. For us, storytelling has happened in various ways. It's happened in budget properties, it's happened in mid-scale properties where what you're allowed to experiment with is very limited. It's happened for us in, of course, upscale properties where the liberty you have in designing is immense. So we've done a lot of very interesting projects, and we can come back to that as we progress.
Yeah. Prusni, what do you have to say about it?
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes. So before going to any project specific thing, I just want to share one experience which we all can relate to. I came inside the property, Marriott here. I saw a huge, beautiful wall painting, right at the lobby reception. It depicts the temple, Pashupatinath temple, Nagpokari, which is very close to this place. Also, the wildlife, rhino, elephants, everything is there in the picture. I said, wow. It gave me a glimpse of the entire Kathmandu in one shot. That is amazing. Imagine if I had my kid here. She would ask me, Mama, what is this? What is this? You have taken me to the Pashupatinath, but you have not taken me to the supers. You have not taken me to the other areas. That is again exposure. So this is storytelling. So why go back to lobby here itself? You see this beautiful lighting. So when I'm seeing this lighting, I can see, okay, this is a Himalayan land, though significance of flags. The element of this lighting is flag. Maybe this is my imagination. Maybe this is not the concept which the designer has done. But if that is the concept, then the designer has played a great role and able to capture that. So that is the interaction, that is the engagement with the user, and that is the emotions. Imagine the same picture at the lobby. So that kid has grown up, again coming back to the hotel. I was with my mother in that year, particular year, and now this painting has changed. Probably if this painting is there, but they have renovated in a different manner. So that is again coming back to the memory. So we are all playing. What did we do? We played a story. We told the story to the user related it, the user imagined it, lived it, and came back again to re-experience it. That is marketing and sales. So we started with storytelling and ended up with a marketing, involved the user, it created experience. That is all about storytelling, I think, and that we leverage with the designers.
Very nice. Prusni, you made a point which I catch on is that from this current story, you have created another story for your children, and children are going to play another
Yes, of course.
project another story when they go back to their schools, their friends, and there is a lot more saying. Yeah. And I have one very important question to the design fraternity, including you yourself, is that in today's time, everybody is saying that we are signing more of JWs, we are signing more experiential. But at any given point of time, the mid-scale hotels will outnumber those luxury 5-star experiential any given point of time. How are we going to bring that story in a cookie cutter model like a Courtyard or a Fairfield or let's say Park Inn or a brand similar to that, a Novotel, where there is a very stringent guideline, and from there you have to take a clue and you have to proceed further. Right? Bobby?
I agree that in the 3-star hotels or the cookie cutter ones, it's difficult because there's so much of standardization. The cost of project is small. The fee is small for the designer also to rack his head, and and again even for the brand to rack their head so much on a small product is probably economically not very viable. People who do that, there are people who do that in small budget hotels, but these are mainly standalones. And I've seen this in all over Europe, like in London or in even Milan. There are small boutique budget hotels that are very, very high in that experience, and it's very seldom that it's a popular brand. So they land up with having one wall in that bedroom which has to speak about that local flavor in terms of an artwork and all that. That's all where it comes. But when it comes to a higher brand, yes, there is a lot of scope, and it should be encouraged to. I personally, when I come to Nepal, I would like to, my favorite hotel that I really enjoyed when I first came here and to study the markets was Dwarika. And I got a true Nepalese experience in that property. And I think it's a small hotel, but it probably must be clocking the highest rates. It's been a lot of effort that's gone into making that by the owner. There's no brand there. And so, learning from that, if we can get them in these experiences into a modern hotel, then I think there is enough people dying to spend and experience all this. One of the reasons Rajasthan in India is so popular as a tourist destination is because when you go to those locations, those properties, those old palaces, even the new ones who are trying to recreate that experience, is a true, authentic, classic Rajasthan dream-like experience, right? It's a dream. You're living a fantasy, and it attracts the maximum number of guests who come there to experience, other than just sightseeing. Those hotels also, each one across different brands, are so experiential.
Rita, he has spoken about Rajasthan. Just give her the mic. He spoke about the Rajasthan. Vandana, Brija, Prusni, I think so. You all are, we must have done some project or other in Jaipur or somewhere in Rajasthan. Everybody has got inspired by peacock. How are we as a designer taking up that challenge of taking that inspiration of a peacock being present in Rajasthan, and how are we interpreting that? And if you can quote some example, I would be happy to, I think so everybody here would be happy to understand how peacock, as a designer, how peacock can be interpreted in probably 100 different types. You want to pass on to somebody, Britta, and think about it?
I never, to be honest, I was just thinking I never saw a peacock in Rajasthan.
So you missed out something. You have missed out on something.
Somebody else wanted.
Okay, that's very interesting. In India, two things I have seen very famous. One is peacock and alpana. Every storytelling starts with peacock, I don't know why, and alpana. But that's also a very creative thing that with that same concept, you see different designs everywhere. You see different materials, different innovative things. That I give it to your designers fraternity. You're amazing. How can you create with one concept so different things? But yes, in Rajasthan, peacock is very famous, and you see that in every hotel, even in some of our hotels also. But we have created in different manner. I mean, the entire design concept, I give it back again to the designer who designed in a different manner, the color, the inspirations, the material, the design, everything is so different. You can think out of box with the same concept. You'll agree, Vandana, with this?
Yeah, I guess we don't have a choice. We just have to constantly push ourselves to, push our imagination boundaries. Talking about Rajasthan, I've not really done a project there till now, so if there's any owner in the audience who wants to give me one, I'll be happy. Talking of peacocks, we actually took that as an inspiration for a project in Bhubaneswar recently, where for us the peacock came from one of the ikat patterns in the saris that we were looking at. So it's pretty common there to see peacocks interpreted in the checkered patterns or the ikat saris. So we picked that pattern up from there, and we took that as our common thread through the property. It's still, in its design process though. And we have reinterpreted that peacock motif in very different ways throughout the property. So in the lobby, it actually appears as a very three-dimensional ceiling. In the banqueting, it becomes an architectural feature where, you basically just pick the lines of what the wing does, with its intersecting circles. And they sort of become more three-dimensional and architectural, not really as a chandelier, but as an architectural ceiling through which light is sort of designed for the banquet. So so there are various ways in which you can reinterpret a pattern or reinterpret a motif and use it in design to create a unique experience. So that's for the peacock. But for me, one of our most interesting recent projects, which was for IHCL, is the Sadade Goa, where we really played on stories. And for us, the intent was not really to go and put a stamp saying that Studio 4 has designed this. For us, this project was about bringing together multiple stories. The story that was the original narrative of Charles Correa, who was the celebrated architect who designed it. Then to basically bring the outside in, which is the exterior-interior story, to take you back to the era when the property was constructed. So 40 years back, how was life living in that era? So imbibe that into your interior. And then we also landed up creating various characters. So we had the rooster, we had the sun, and you would see the rooster doing things through the property. So he suddenly appears at an artwork. He's there on your as a little element sitting on a table. He's literally walking with you in the corridor, peeking through a little artwork somewhere. We worked and collaborated with a lot of local artists, which was very interesting because that's what makes the story authentic. So we really worked with a lot of artists who hand-painted tiles, We've done IPS floorings with local craftsmen. We've had embroidered cushions, which are locally sourced. Of course, the cappies and the shells. So, of course, Goa also lends you that field to experiment with. And of course, the owner and the brand support you in sort of delivering a certain.
So, Vandana, if I ask you one word of that narrative which you try to use in Siddha de Goa, what would be that one word be?
I would say it's creating a sense of the unexpected.
Sense of unexpected.
Yeah.
Great. I'm serious. That's one of my most loved hotel, cottage number 72 in Siddha de Goa. That's the fixed cottage for me, and I go twice a year over there. Last time I was there, I missed it. I'm going in March. I will definitely stay there and come back with you if there are any comments on it. Brita, similarly, what kind of a set? Sir, can we take it at the question and answer session, please? Yeah, I do agree. Bombay Airport is full of peacock. The way it has been interpreted, I am 101% in agreement with you. Brita, what I would like to, I'm sorry, Bansal Sahab, they are not going to give me any more time.
It's amazing for an airport
to be able to tell story of an Indian world. So, Brita, if you had to give an example of a project where you feel that story created that project, what would that example be?
We are doing one project just here, where we are taking inspiration from the culture, from the city, and translating it into a story and into the architecture, into the facade of the building. Here the Hilton, which Ahmed will show in a bit. So we are in a way taking the prayer flags as inspiration, translating it into a dichroic fins. And dichroic fins, depending on the angle you look at it, you get a different color. So this is not a direct translation, but a conceptual translation of culture into architecture. Or in Mumbai, we just finished a lobby where we are taking from the architecture, speaking a story of triangulated dichroic facade in that case. And we took this concept of the reflection, which in that case is color, into the lobby, but we are translating it it's a triangulated, faceted stainless steel ceiling, but instead of taking the color from outside, we are letting reflect the user who enters the lobby. Because the user in the building is making the difference, he's working there, he's making every day a difference to the environment. So in this case, you enter the lobby and you reflect yourself into the ceiling of the lobby.
Great. I'm going to question, as a designer, I want it in yes and no, make your life easy to design if you have a storyline and a narrative? Yes or no?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yes, thanks. Pramod ji, we are all dreamers. And you are like a dream catcher for us. You actually bring those dreams into reality for us. Do you find that the projects which are designed, which are not a cookie cutter model, far more difficult to be created than a cookie cutter model?
See, because my take on the design is to build relationship rather than selling a product. In the numerous years we have been working into, I'm not trying to, I've yet to come across any project which has been thought out of the box. While executing, we have been working with national, international architects, designers and everything. And at the execution stage, whenever we ask what we are doing, the standard answer comes to us is the brand requirement. Today, if we take out those 2 years of COVID, it's been 13 years since the time this AiM has started. And in the last 13 years, it's all about brand. But has anybody tried to come out, "Okay, well, this is brand requirement. Can we go beyond this?" It means, are we trying?
It's a big challenging question to us. He's challenging that why aren't we going beyond the brand?
You see, basically we should try and convince. You know, what is a hotel? Where we come, we accommodate ourselves, we stay, we eat, and we should carry a pleasing stay things along with us. You get into a room, you'll find 10 defects, not in terms of quality, not in terms of things, other things, but one is a brand standard. I'm checking in a double room. The switch would be on one side. The night lamp will be on the other side. Why? It's a brand requirement. You know, there's so many questions. You know, I am a contractor. We cannot challenge anyone. Our take on comes once everything is predefined, done everything, and we have nothing to do but close our eyes and just execute it. Right?
So next opportunity we get to work together, we both will fight with the brand and tell them that this is what the end user, as an end user, when you show your perspective, we'll try and educate them and tell them that this is what is required.
Correct. We should always see what the end user requirement is. But what has been doing, what we see is the brand ultimately is trying to overtake the end user. I'm not saying they must have not studied, but with the time, you know, the requirements changes. Today, any company will come out in automation, any company will come out. I'm talking about a small diverter putting in a washroom. Now, how many people today would know how to operate that diverter? I'm carrying with my family, I'll have my children, they will be in other room. You know, one should understand that the operations of that particular thing which we are trying to get it introduced, how viable it is. So there are many things, you know, which it comes to.
So I agree. I think so. This is a subject of discussion which may go, and probably even this 2 minutes which are left, 2 hours are going to be insufficient for that, because we try and discuss this over and over again as a designer. Taking a cue from what you have said, I saw my friend presenting in earlier presentation. Ganesh did present his concept. Now, and he made the point that there is an inspiration, there is an idea which generates. But do you think that it is very, very important to give the local reference to all the design stories, rather than just getting inspired by few steel rods or few things which are there at the side or something like that? Or we should have the local nuances or local references to your story? What is your take, Bhavesh?
See, you're talking about a typical project in a certain location, but storytelling is not only about that. Yes, if you're in Nepal, I was talking about Dwarika Hotel, or something on the palaces of Rajasthan. But then what do you do if you're in a city? You're in a boring city like Bombay or Dhaka, it's not really offering you too much to get inspired by. But that time, if you come up with a nice storyline, which you can carry right from the entrance of the hotel to your master bedroom toilet, all the way, I think I would have done an amazing job. Okay, so we've had examples like that. One very interesting thing that we're working on right now, Prushni's company for IHCL, ever since Tata's bought over Air India, there was talk about how to resurrect the Maharaja, the new millennials or the Generation X, or I don't know if they know much about the Maharaja, but from my young days, he was an iconic mascot. And they spun the the original Air India, which now has gone back to the rightful hands, they did an amazing job with that story of taking him to different parts of the world, like the posters they had in those days, the ad campaigns, we were so witty, like the Maharaja in Paris with can dancers, or, him chilling in Brazil with some, beach. So this is one of our newest projects that I'm very excited. It's about to start. The first one's about, so we are making these Maharaja suites in the important hotels where because Tata's is such an amazing company that can give you an end-to-end solution with everything, we came up with the story where, along of course with the top management, that a person from Bombay, this rich dude wants to go to Delhi. He will get picked up either in a nice XJ8 or a Range Rover Vogue, take him to the airport. It's still a dream. Many of things will happen, some might not in the storyline. You enter in through your FBO entrance, your private jet entrance. Don't go through all the... Yeah, so the car will drop you to your aircraft. You climb up the steps, you get into your first class or business class, with the Maharaja experience. There'll be certain things in the car that connects you to that Maharaja experience. And then when you go to the hotel and stay, book in, there is a Maharaja suite waiting for you. That suite is inspired by this royal person, the masked Maharaja himself. No. So who was Maharaja? He was not necessarily a real royal. Okay, he was probably like a new age, I wouldn't say fake royal, but the new royalties comes with, with becoming an industrialist or a big businessman, all that. So they are the new royals, but give them that twist. His colors, his poshak, his turban, he has bright colors, his mustache, it shows up within the space. Inspired, Air India had, the aircrafts had, these only airline in the world that had windows with a Indian arch on the windows. Taking that and inspiration, bringing it into the story, into the interiors of the project. His posters, if you go back through all his posters, amazing ad campaign that they had. So take this to all the big cities. So it's a bit funky. It's about.
We'll wait till you create one and we experience that. I think so. It's a fantastic opportunity to do that. I think so. We are run out of time, and I would like to conclude on this. There were several takes which we are saying that everybody is on one platform saying that story and narratives are essential for whether it's a budget brand or it is there. As far as I do agree, and something what you like and you get inspired could become a story for you. Even an trail of an walking ants, a queue of them could make you a real big story for your design. It is how you perceive it and how you dream about it. It is a fundamentally, it's a way we want to see it and way we want to show people that how it is there. But as far as urban areas are concerned, there are a lot of narratives which could be there. So we could do on personal life of the ownership, we could do that. We could really create a narrative and story out of it and create a interior design and story. I think so we had a very fair conclusion that storylines are important. Pramod, I'm with you, and when we do next time, we would take you as a common man, somebody who is building hotels for us, but we will try and understand what could be and could be translated to brand as a part of your comments that could go to them, and if they could improvise or we could improvise all together, it is most welcome. I think so we have run out of time, but we can have a couple of questions. gentleman there.
So, hi, my name is Ashish Goyal. I'm from India. So, my question was to the top brains of the top brands, international brands especially. If an existing brownfield project has a story itself, he has a story. So, do you consider carrying on that story? And if you do consider, how do you blend the brand standards with that story? Because normally we see that if a brand comes in, they want to have their story over there. So it's a question to all of you. How do you do that?
So I will tell you, if you find the story is very interesting, we have continued. We are writing, I think so. I'm writing lots of them currently as we speak, and it is getting inspired from, as I say, I told you, from a small vegetation which is coming up to whatever the story, whatever is there in the existing in the property. Even the ownership is being inspired and taken as a part of the storyline and is being recreated. So the brand does not, especially for the soft brands, there is no restriction as such that we are not supposed to use, and brand does not, I would like to clarify here, does not impose anything when it comes to the storyline. They have never, none of the brands across have ever said that you are not supposed to get inspired by this story.
But within the big brands, there is one brand, sub-brand that allows you that, not all of them. Say it's a selections or a story or a...
I think so. There are brands which are coming with the booklet also. We probably need to learn more art. Probably Ganesh showed Hayat Regency. Hayat Regency is a very stringent brand. It is not, it comes with the guideline. And probably he wrote a story out of it. So probably if he would have written a story which was with local narratives, brand would have never objected. We are writing on Redison, we are writing on Vivantas, we are writing it on lot of other projects which comes with the brand has given us a guideline. And in that we are trying to incorporate that. Whether it may be form of a piece of furniture, it could be a piece of art, piece of artifact, it could be color palette, it could be print on the fabric, it could be anything as such. Bobby, that's my take on it. Probably.
I concur. I've never seen a brand restrict you in any genre of, a hotel that you want to build. So even for a Fairfield, I've seen that if you push as a designer, you can really add your bit and experiment. So they're more than happy if you want to do that. Yeah.
So if I think so, we can manage in a brand like Parkin and Fairfield, we can manage everywhere. And up till unless you have selected the wrong brand for a wrong kind of a brownfield product, and you want them to, for a very, if you say, I want Dwarka to get converted into W, it is not possible. Because ethos of those brands do not match. So if that is the case, then there is a challenge.
Do we have more questions from the floor?
So I think you will agree that story is for the teller as well as for the beholder. So it's always a two-way stream. And as a designer, designers put together great narrative, great stories. But how do you think that can be really dimensionalized in doing the interiors? Because sometimes the concept is there as part of a great story, but when we put together in a design form and the story gets lost somewhere. Starting point was something else, the end point is something else. And even if you meet the right end, then how do you think that the story is delivered to the beholder?
I think it's a very interesting question, Rima, because all the stakeholders who are part of the project, besides the designer, I feel are great contributors in, you achieving the story. So I feel it's very important to educate in the process of storytelling. This dialogue should not just be restricted to what happens in a room between the designer and the owner, or perhaps the designer and the brand, but it should have a lot of people listening in. So I feel even contractors should buy into your story. They have to understand why a material should look a certain way, why, say, the tactile quality of wood cannot be converted into the flatness of a laminate, or why a tile should not go where you're expecting a cement tile to go, or like a vitrified tile should not replace a cement tile. So we've learned all these things through experience, and I feel that the storytelling has to step out of the boardroom or the meeting room or the Zoom call where it's born out of, and literally, have that ownership come into the people who will execute it, and also the people who will operate the hotel eventually. Because you see various examples of what we were imagining as designers and owners and brands, and what it translates into a guest experience doesn't match that. So this has to continue. It's a seed that's sown, but it has to continue and flourish to grow as a tree.
So, can I respond to you, Rima?
Yeah.
So, Rima, there is, I got a point, there were 2 points. There was how are we going to deliver, and sometimes it get lost. So I do agree. Stories sometimes they have a very great ending, and sometimes they have a sad ending also. So we as a designer, ultimately we are dreamers. We create things, and this cannot be one of the final things which is possible. But interpretations can be done in various ways, in terms of details, color palettes, in terms of accessorization, in terms of art, in terms of pieces of furniture. These are the interpretations which we try to bring in any of the storyline.
Wait, Rima, answering your question, we have been able to do that. Where we started, we ended with that. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of hard work. We are not able to do it for all our projects. Sometimes, as you think, it does get diluted, but if you find a nice client, we've been lucky with many nice clients, and a nice brand also who's supporting you, then we're able to take the story till the end. They listen to us, we're passionately able to inspire them in making them believe that this is good. They themselves get convinced, they help you in the process. We get the right executing agencies, the right vendors. Everyone works hard, but it's not an effortless job. It's a lot of effort. It does not work with the cookie cutter things and all that. And we've had huge successes with such stories, and the audience respected that. It also multiplied into dividends because the entire team was in sync. And it does happen. And it happens all over the world.
Absolutely. And I think so it is very, very important that this should be recorded, and the brand and the ownership should translate this into some kind of a document and put it there in the room, put it there in the lobby, public areas, so that people understand, because most of these time narratives and other storylines are never understood, apart from you seeing some artworks and you start relating Nepal to Nepal and kind of things. But otherwise there is a huge underline which is there, which is never seen by the client and the actual guest. So it should be translated into a document, and for that I would request at least the brand and the ownership to assist us to put it there and make the product much more beautiful and much more better.
We'll just take that last question. All right, last question, please.
This is a funny question. Cosima asked to tell the story for the peacock. I'm asking, was the peacock male or female?
Sir, right. So if the wings were spread, you know what happens.
Sorry, I would want, with permission, I have some peculiar question. One is for the contractor and one's for the interior designer. The interior designer, how do you handle the promoters, Man Friday, who will come and tell you that, no, I don't want this design, or he'll come and tell you that, this is the alternation I want to your design. Whatever the brand would have specified, he wants to counter that or change that. And even if he gets a no from you, how does a contractor handle that? Because I've seen in most of the cases that the owner wants to get his way through in spite of the best of the designs presented by the interior designer. So how do you handle these two situations for both contractor as well as for designer?
We can respond to this. I want to respond to, but I don't.
No, we've been in this dilemma. And so I'll tell you, as a designer with owners and brands being here, I'll be candid that it's important. So we reach a point where we begin with a lot of passion. We try and take it as far till the end as possible. But somewhere down the line, when there is too much of resistance, end of the day, we have to fit in our work also within a certain amount of, man hours of work put in. So once you reach that, if you cross that threshold limit, you perhaps invest a little bit more. But then there have been times where you have given in. You have given in, and the end result also is not as good. So that money that was spent, that ROI that was expected because of this ego or something psychological or an emotional issue, it harms the projects, it harms the business. But what will the contractor do? He's been appointed by the owners. He's in a fix. So sometimes we've had also very intelligent contractors who understood, and they have also been able to influence the ownership, because the contractor's has a history with this owner. Sometimes owners listen to the contractors. If the contractor is also truly convinced with the whole thing, he does play a role in influencing them. We've had that support as well.
Kaul, we as consultants, architects and interior designers are the bridge between the ownership and the brand. Because what we understand, probably we understand the brand also beautifully and very perfectly, and we understand the ownership desires also. So we are the ones who have to handle that, whatever you say. I will give you a very clear-cut example if you allow me for a minute or so. Interpreting religion into design, bringing religion into design. And I'm putting it very frankly, boldly, we had a huge heated argument on site in the way I wanted to represent and what the brand wanted to represent. But there was a sense of what brand was saying was also correct. So it was not ignoring. I wanted a very contemporary representation. They wanted an actual representation. But actual representation, again, religion can't be brought into a public space like this. So we found a via media out of it. And I think so that piece of representation which is there has turned out to be one of the most beautiful things in this. But you have to see, we can't close our eyes, ears and say that, boss, we are what we say is correct. It is always, there is sometimes a contractor would be able to give us a solution. So we need to be a little more open to and welcoming to the ideas and the flow of thought process which can come from anybody, as a matter of fact. Sometimes
I also have something to say here. So what I've learned from experience is that the more open the communication can be between the decision makers, who typically are the ownership and the brand, and the designer. So if you can just chop off the layers in between and keep the communication direct between the decision maker and the designer, you will really be able to create a world-class product, because you in every project you see a lot of spoilers who will go feed the ownership in the background or say things. So I think this open communication is extremely important, and it is actually in the interest of the owner. I have seen this over the course of my practice and over the years that wherever we've been able to have an open dialogue, and it's a dialogue where you learn from each other. It's not imposing. You learn from each other, and you learn from you try and create a balance and design in what they want versus what you want to deliver. You're able to create a great product that way.
Thank you very much to our panelists for answering all the questions on the floor as well. With this, we'd like to conclude this session. Can we please put our hands together for this fabulous panel that talked about how complex storytelling can be and how challenging it is, but also how rewarding it can be if done the right way. Talking about collaborative approach being essential, and the synergy in the storyline and all the elements has to be there, is also what all the panelists agreed to. May I please invite Mr. Ramesh Call on stage to kindly present this token of appreciation to our panelists and our moderator, who brought forward some really interesting points from their learnings and from their experiences as well. So huge thank you once again to our moderators. We'd like to thank our moderator, Mr. Hojima Chittalwala. Thank you very much. We'd also like to thank Mr. Bobby Mukherjee. We'd like to thank Ms. Britta as well for being a part of this session. We'd like to thank Mr. Pramod Soni, Ms. Prushni Das, and Ms. Vandana Saxena for giving us their time and sharing the insights that they learned in this journey that they have taken in the hospitality industry as well. We talked about storytelling, or interior design's need for storytelling. So we'd like to thank all our panelists, our moderator, and a group photo. We'd like to request for a group photograph. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please put our hands together one more time for this fabulous panel? And the token of appreciation is, of course, the hand-painted thanka that also tells its own story, which I hope all of you will, keep very close to your heart as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the fabulous session.